What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Empirical Scouting Podcast. We are finally back after a long break between me and myself getting married. We had the holidays. We had our lawyer over here doing all his lawyer things, and we are finally back at the conclusion of the college football playoffs. But first, we had breaking news literally about 2 hours ago that Nick Saban, the GOAT, is retiring. We knew it was coming. We kind of figured that it was coming this year or probably next year. I know we talked about that in the past, and everyone always talked about how, the Bama dynasty is done. Nick Saban's going to retire, and every single year it just returns back to normal. But this is finally it. It feels weird. I was talking to my wife, and I was trying to describe to her what the feeling's like, and it's like you knew it was happening, but when someone of that stature retires, you kind of it still is just weird. It's weird. Like when Tom Brady retired, I had the same feeling. I was like, man, well, the first time before he came back, and I was like, man, this is it. Like all my life, pretty much of really watching football, I've seen Tom Brady throw passes, and same thing here. I've seen Nick Saban pretty much dominate college football, and we're finally going to see what it's like post Nick Saban era. Just read off a few of his accomplishments. This man was 297, 71, and 1. That's just absolutely ridiculous to describe. He won 7 national championships and 12 conference titles, including 9 of those being the SEC. Just very impressive. And regardless of your fandom, me being a Georgia fan, obviously, we had plenty of run-ins over the years, but you can always tip your cap and respect the GOAT in that situation. Like he's just he changed college football. And the crazy thing about him to me is more so I truly don't think he liked this era of college football. I think he's annoyed with it. I don't think this is the era that he really wants to be in. But the difference is he went out and mastered it. He didn't really want the transfer portal. What did he do? He dominated the transfer portal. He didn't really want NIL. What did he do? Dominate NIL. Like he is what Clemson fans want Dabo Swinney to be. He doesn't like it. He has his thoughts. He makes them known. But if that's the rules, then he's going to play by them. And that's just something that you can respect and just changing the game. And I think he's finally realized this era of college football that we're about to enter is just completely different from previous years. And it's just, I think between being 72 years old, he's already getting up there in age. I think he found a nice, safe time to hand over the reins to whoever gets hired next.
Yeah, so you say Brady, and Brady retiring wasn't even the moment for me. It was Brady not being on the Patriots. And it's going to be similar with, if the rumors are true and Belichick's no longer going to be coaching the Patriots. It's something will happen eventually, but it's just you never envision it. You never realize or think about what it's going to be like once that actually happens. And it's, we're coming up on another landmark of that soon enough with LeBron and the NBA. That's something that's I don't even remember the NBA pre-LeBron at this point. I was so young, and he's been playing at such a high level for so long. My main thing with it is I agree, he's the GOAT. I don't even think there's anybody that's an active coach in college football that can challenge him. And I say that with all due respect to Kirby Smart. I don't think Kirby Smart can challenge him.
It would be tough.
Unless it would be really, really, really tough. Yeah. And you'd have to get double digit national titles.
And especially coming up with a 12-team playoff.
It's going to be
so
tougher,
many more teams. Yeah, so many more teams are going to be, enter their hat in the ring, and then, you're going to be playing a few more games, and anything can happen in football. Obviously in college football, it's a little bit tougher to say that, but, anything can happen. The more games you play, the more chances you have to lose. So it's just not going to be as a quote unquote easier of a road
so
to get
there. My big thing with this though is this job is obviously a job that so many people have reportedly wanted for so long, like the post-Saban era. People kind of try to politic themselves into being that successor for a long time. And I truly think that you might not want what you really want. I'm not phrasing this right, but this job I think is attractive because of the salary it's going to command and the reputation the school has because of Saban. Um, moving forward, I'm not too confident this job's going to be a job that is going to lead to success unless you put in a lot of work. It's not this roster overachieved this year, in my opinion, and you're losing a lot of talent right off the bat. You're likely losing J.C. Latham. I don't even know. I think Isaiah Bond, Kool-Aid's gonna go. Terrion Arnold's gone already.
Said Latham.
You get Milroe back. You're getting
Is Jace McKellen? I think he's going to the NFL,
he's a senior.
Right?
He's a senior, I think.
Okay, so yeah.
But you get Milroe back. You get Justice Haynes back. You get Caleb Downs back, and you maybe get Deontay Lawson back, and that's. You don't even know if you're getting all four of those guys back.
That's what I was about to say.
Because they all could go to the portal easily. And, Downs and Haynes are two guys that I would not be surprised if they hit the portal after this news. The only one I really would have confidence would stay, I think Milroe stays regardless. I think that's like him. But this team, this roster overachieved this year, in my opinion. And then you're getting a kind of roster that looks depleted a little bit on paper, at least. And then you're going to be relying on new starters and incoming recruits that if you can even hold together the class. And so,
as of about an hour ago, Ryan Williams, like the number one player in their class, already decommitted, wide receiver. So, not saying, obviously he can always recommit, but it was kind of surprising him being the very first one, kind of leading the charge. Because if he's leaving, I don't know if I forgot the guy coming in, the quarterback. I'm drawing a blank.
Isn't it Julian Saban?
I don't know if Julian Saban would decommit, but him decommitting kind of raises red flags to me. It's like you want in that situation your top guys, your head dogs.
It really doesn't matter if Saban's gonna actually sign or if he is signed already. Like, I mean, he could hit the portal.
Yeah.
ASAP before he even starts a game for them. So it's just going to be a big I think this is going to look like Oklahoma the first couple years with the name is escaping me, but Oklahoma post Lincoln Riley pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's crazy to see Saban gone though.
It is. So we'll wrap up Saban segment more so just I got some odds that I pulled for the next head coach. It's kind of funny, but at the leading the pack, Dan Lanning at plus 400, Dabo Sweeney right behind him at plus 500. Those are the pretty obvious two. I think that everyone's talking about. Your boy Kalen DeBoer coming in third at plus 600, and then you got Dion. Prime time plus 600. Again, I don't think that would happen. And then the dark horse that would be extremely funny, but I don't think he'll ever coach again in college football unless he takes like a small school. Urban Meyer at plus 1,000. Which one of those would you put your money on if you had to? One of those options.
That's tough. I think Lanning being the odds-on favorite and like the rumor that he's like the target immediately, it stands out to me because like I don't think Saban does this without there being some kind of heads up and there being some back channel politics and stuff going on. So like the fact that he's the odds-on favorite and there's already reports out there that he's the guy they're looking at leads me to believe that they've at least broached the topic with his agent. I don't know of him necessarily, but like I think they've at least approached his agent already. I wouldn't be surprised if Saban had given the school like heads up that like, hey, this may be coming at the beginning of the season, and like at some point during the season he was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be it, and they just now announced it. So I think I'd be pretty surprised if they don't have a name or two already lined up that it's like, hey, I'm on board, just give me the contract offer.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're right. I mean, he definitely wouldn't do the Bama like that and just dip out of nowhere. So they definitely have stuff going on, and there's smoke, there's fire. So Dan Lanning, I could definitely see that. I hope not, because I love that man, and I don't want to see him in a Bama jacket.
I hope they hire Billy.
Yeah,
Hire Billy
exactly.
Napier,
There
please.
you go.
He's a great
I,
coach.
I wrote down some other options that weren't listed on there. Obviously Lane Kiffin, biggest one. I think to me with him, I think he has that cocky attitude where he'd be like, if you want to, and I told you this earlier today, like you have to wait until next year because I just built a God squad at Ole Miss. I'm going for it this year. All those guys are going to be leaving after this year. So I'm trying to run it with the squad I have now because they can't transfer out. Or I guess they could if he leaves, but then, it gets kind of wishy-washy there. So many people follow him to Bama from Ole Miss. So I think he would wait. Obviously Sark, we talked about him earlier as well. Between us, I don't think he would leave Texas. Too big of a job, money. Kind of similar to Dan Lanning, except there's no smoke with him right now, and he's been there. So I don't think he would. The one I really hope not would be Glenn Schumann at Georgia, just because he's a dog. I don't want him there. And then a good one I actually heard in the car on the way back recently available, Mike Vrabel. Do you think he would ever dip his toe into? You don't think he would do it?
I think if he's doing it, he'd be doing it for Ohio State.
Same, yeah.
I don't think he'd be doing it for that job personally.
It was just interesting because I was like, that's very true. Like he is now available, and would he want to? Because I think he should wait for the Patriots.
The funnier one there would be Pete Carroll for me, but that's not happening.
I thought about that one too, but I think he's just too old for that. I don't think he would, go back down there. We'll move on.
I'm more so thinking, like I really don't think they're going to go NFL route. I don't think they're going Lane. I don't think. I think if they wanted Lane, like they would have kept him around longer. Almost.
Yeah, I think they would already be like there'd be more. One, there'd be more smoke, and two, I don't think he would have built this team that he built at Ole Miss, knowing he's going to Bama if he knew this already. Like I don't think he would have wasted his time doing that just to leave. But we'll move on. We had the national championship a few days ago as well on Monday. Michigan taking home the title, 34-13 versus Washington. It was actually a pretty eventful game. At first, everyone's like, "Here we go, the Georgia TCU." It was about to be a blowout, and it definitely looked like it. Washington could not stop Michigan. Washington was moving the ball. Their first drive, they moved down with ease, ended up with a field goal, but they couldn't punch it in the end zone. Second drive, I believe, kind of stalled, and then you knew that third drive they couldn't score. Things could get ugly, but they held Michigan to a field goal, and then from there, shout out to the defensive coordinator, but he turned it on. He made so many adjustments where he made Michigan struggle. But I'll go ahead and say, and I just want to get it out of the way. We've talked about it. We've argued about it, in private. But I'm just thankful that there's a 12-team playoff because watching these college football player games, I know I'm biased and I'm a homer. I try to be as unbiased as possible, but I just don't. I think this was a weak year. It was weak. No, Washington was the best offense in there. But they had a horrible defense. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Michigan's offense. It's like the old Bama, old Georgia, where it's just run the ball, and then try to make a pass. It's not very fun. Like I bet maybe it's more not fun. But
it's not fun, but it's football. Like
it is, and I want to say shout out to the Michigan offensive line and the Michigan defense were elite. They bullied not Michigan. Michigan's offensive line and defense just completely bullied Washington for about 2.5 quarters of that game. They were doing whatever they want. They could run. I do think Harbaugh or whoever calls the plays at Michigan officially kind of got away from what was dominant, and they could have made that game 2-3 scores early. It's not. Okay.
I don't know the name off the top of my head. It's their offensive coordinator who was the interim coach while Harbaugh was suspended.
Okay. Well, do you see what I'm saying though with that? Like he completely got away from his game plan that was working that first quarter, and it took him a while to get back.
I do think though that there is some balancing that has to be done with it because like you saw it work well early on, and then there was a stretch in that game where they couldn't move the ball well on offense. And it wasn't necessarily because they couldn't pass the ball, because they weren't necessarily attempting passes because JJ only threw a limited amount of times.
I think he completed it was 10 passes all game.
Like there was a solid there is a drive that just sticks in my head immediately in the second half that Michigan ran the ball 3 straight times, which is, what you were asking them to do because that's what was working initially, and they moved the ball to like 3rd and 2 or something like that, and when they ran it with quorum on 3rd down, the defensive line held strong and got a stop. So I can see the frustration, but at the same time, there is a bit of a balancing act within the game plan. I think acknowledging the trenches for Michigan is, the big thing. That's why they won the game. They truly did go back to football from 20 plus years ago. Like they did the grinding, tough. I'm going to be stronger than you. I'm going to win by smashing your mouth, type of thing. And like people get so frustrated with JJ from a draft perspective because of what he's not asked to do.
We'll have those conversations later on.
And I'm not getting into the draft, but I'm saying they get so frustrated with that.
We've had plenty.
And then, but like at the same time, you don't have to ask your quarterback to do something like that when you know you're gonna smash mouth somebody, wear them down.
Yeah.
It's the Derrick Henry thing in with Tennessee too. Like, there was a period of time where Tennessee would wear down a team over the course of a game. Fourth quarter comes, they've been doing it so long, Derrick Henry's going to pop off because they're so worn down, they're tired, he's stronger, he's bigger, he's faster. So, that's how Michigan won this game, and it's commendable nowadays.
Tip of the cap. And it wasn't like they faced another team like that. They faced a high-flying, spread you out, I'm going to throw for 400 yards a game offense, and they limited Penix to like 250, which is very, very respectable. And their defensive line was just getting after it. Penix, I think the lights were a little bit too bright for Penix. He was missing wide open throws. He was, his footwork, he was like stuttering while trying to throw half the ball. And like he had time. Like the Michigan defense was coming. He knew that. But like it was kind of like he was hearing footsteps so early that he would just start, stutter stepping backwards and then just toss the ball and be incomplete. And it's kind of like he was making wide open throws all year long in all sorts of pressure, but
I don't think it's the lights. I think it's just they had the game plan to move him off his spot and make him have to get past the first read. There's two things that Penix is just he struggles with. And he's not great working over the middle of the field. Shout out to Nate Tice. Like Nate Tice has pointed that out, and like since he said something on his podcast about it, I've noticed it. Like,
whenever you said it, I've been noticing it too. Like everything's just out.
Penix, he loves everything outside the hashes at least, and if not outside the numbers. Like he likes to go wide with everything, and he doesn't work over the middle of the field well. And so they were moving him in the pocket, making him have to do things that he doesn't want to do because he's not he's athletic, but he's not that kind of athletic.
No, not at all.
And the game plan worked to perfection. I don't think it's necessarily the lights were too bright. I just think they exposed weakness in his game that combined with some of his mechanical failures or his, just his mechanics as a thrower made it to where that game was going to be hard for Washington to do what they've done.
His mechanics remind me sometimes of the 14-year-olds I used to coach baseball with, where they kind of just like short arm and just going like that, from second base to first, and it's kind of like
his motion almost reminds me of Philip Rivers. But it worked obviously for Philip Rivers for many other reasons. But
to me, it's shorter than Philip Rivers. Like that, I don't know if I've ever seen a short arm thrower like that. It's just
I don't know all his injuries off the top of my head. Like I know he had a torn ACL. I don't know if he's had throwing shoulder surgery. But his motion is so stiff almost, where it doesn't look like he has any shoulder mobility in a weird way.
He also
I don't know if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying from a baseball perspective at least. But it doesn't also he doesn't really drive into it. You see the Dak Prescott memes when they're activating their hips, and now CJ Stroud, they love showing all his things. He brings out every sports ball in the man and plays all the sports before a game. And he's been balling out, so whatever works.
He has serious disconnects between his upper body and lower body.
His lower body just doesn't work with his upper body, and it's just all short arm, and it's all just straight muscle. And he can get it done. His arm isn't weak; it's not as strong as others in this class. And again, we'll get to that in another episode. But it's not weak. Like he's completing these passes. But yeah, it was just I just keep thinking about that one to Rome that he just overthrew. Because if he completes that pass, like Michigan could have lost. Like they could have easily lost that game. And it sounds weird in like a 19-point loss, but
Yeah. It was a
Washington could
closer
have
game than the
easily
score
won that.
indicated.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a way closer game than the score.
Well, it was also kind of like that first Georgia championship, where if you look at the score, it's like, oh, we beat Bama by 2 touchdowns, a little bit more than that. But
But
in
it's
reality,
only
it was
because
really
the pick six at the
yeah,
end, right?
exactly. So yeah, so very similar with Blake Court, the pick all the way down to like the 1 yard line, and Blake Corum scores his touchdown, second one of the game. So it was a lot closer. I was very happy about that because I mean, obviously, unless it's Georgia, I don't want to really watch a blowout. But it was good to see Washington's defense especially respond and adjust because there was those running plays that those gaps just closed quick or there was just none there and then nothing Corum to do. But the last thing I want to personally mention about the game, where has Dylan Edwards been all year long? Like we talked about him preseason. I had him ranked higher than Blake Corum, like personally. I still honestly might for like a draft perspective, but like where was he all year? Like he was not used. I was going through his game logs. He got used the last like 3 games, pretty decently. But other than that, he just wasn't there. Like, was he? I don't know if he was injured, if they just wanted to feed Corum, if they didn't need him, and they were just like, "Hey, we're just gonna let you get a few touches, and later on the season we'll need you when we do."
I have a suspicion it was just like wanting to feed Corum and like them not necessarily being a rotational type of team, like with their approach with offense.
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw it for a long time with the Saban Alabama teams where like, they had a senior running back like TJ Yeldon or whatever, and like, or they would have like Derrick Henry like as the second string guy. And it would be really clear, like, for a lot of reasons, that like Derrick Henry's like very good, but they would give like T.J. Yeldon or like Damian Harris later on like the start and like the majority of the work and snaps and stuff. And I'm not saying Donovan Edwards is better or worse than Corum. I think it's just like
Yeah,
Harbaugh was respecting the senior that came back type of thing, and like respecting like that this
get
guy's
him
actually
Heisman.
a very good player himself too. So it's like,
Yeah,
I think if Corum was bad, maybe like you see Donovan Edwards a
yeah,
lot more. But
he's
I mean,
good. Like Corum is
yeah,
good.
yeah,
It's just
it's
I think
definitely a
Edwards is
disappointment
more
that
electric.
yeah, and who knows how he handled it internally as well, because it's like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously he's not in the portal or anything, but he couldn't necessarily be in the portal if he wanted to play for the
Yeah,
national title. Um,
yeah. We'll see
but
the next like 10 days or so that he has to see if he wants to jump in the portal or if he wants to go to the NFL.
yeah, I mean, I don't. He didn't even really do a lot in the game. Like he had
Uh,
he had 2 touchdowns, long touchdowns, but he had 6 carries overall. Like,
yeah,
so it's tough because it's like you put something great on tape for like 2 of your runs, but you don't do a lot like otherwise. And like Donovan Edwards is a guy like I like his talent enough to where I would draft him, but I
yeah,
don't know if where I'd be willing to draft him is where he wants to be drafted.
yeah.
Um,
And he could just
is
come
the
back
issue.
and try to run it back because obviously Corum's gone. So
Yeah.
he's going to be off to the NFL, and he could be the guy. Now we don't know what Michigan's going to look like next year. That's a different
Yeah, that's
story.
also
But
the
hopefully, who
question of it
knows? Yeah.
too, is if
But he
they
could
don't have
if
a
he does
quarterback and a head
stay.
coach and stuff.
Yeah, but if he does stay, even if JJ leaves, if he stays and then Jim does end up bouncing, then the portal opens up for him. So he could always dip out and go to another school if he chooses. But yeah, that's gonna be
I have a
yeah,
suspicion that if Jim bounces, like they will just promote Sharon Moore,
yeah,
and
Sherrone Moore,
I mean
yeah,
the offensive coordinator, and it's like
yeah,
he's not necessarily a Michigan man. Like he didn't go to Michigan or anything, but like he's an assistant coach at Michigan. So like maybe I don't know how their whole Michigan man policy works or whatever,
no,
to be honest.
it's like a cult almost. Yeah,
But
it's a weird cult.
I could see them promoting him from within, and since he like had the whole stretch already, and then Edwards may stay just because of that relationship.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the college football. So we're just gonna do a quick little recap. With our biggest surprise and our biggest disappointment of the season. It's going to be a single player. It could be a team. It could be a coach. Whatever you want. I will start. It's going to be probably not a surprise to you. A team I was on from the beginning. And I'm glad I was right, even though we beat them, Missouri. They started out unranked. They didn't even get a vote to be in the top 25. So that means they were probably ranked close to like 50. They ended up only losing 2 games all year to UGA and then to LSU, a very good LSU team as well. But they went out and proved that they've been getting some top recruits recently. It's just like 1 or 2 a year, but they've been snagging them. And then obviously we knew Luther Burden is a stud. He's gonna be one of the top receivers off the board next year, if not the top receiver. Brady Cook's solid for college. That's about it. But he's just solid for college. Theo Weiss, we saw him at Oklahoma. He was solid. Solid at Missouri. All good. But Cody Schrader, that running back, D2, comes from D2, dominated D2, comes into Missouri. Last year was pretty good, but this year ended up 3rd in the nation in rushing yards. I watched him dominate Georgia. He was eating whatever he wanted on the ground. Even in both in their losses and their wins, like he was getting 150, 200 yards a game. It was just ridiculous, and it wasn't like they were just feeding him 50 times a game. Like he's breaking off runs, and he's not really shifty. He's more of like, he reminded me of like a mini Mike Allstott. And where he was just running through people, just breaking tackles, just 2 hands on the ball, lower his head, and just run straight. And when he goes down, he goes down, but it's going to take a while. He surprised me a lot. But that whole Missouri team, very well coached, obviously. And it's not, they're playing a hard schedule. They're in the SEC, and they're while they're not Vanderbilt of the SEC, they're still a semi-joke because, unless you're Bama or Georgia, and sometimes LSU, like no one really seems to think you're good.
They're not. They're still almost not real like SEC to me. Like Bama and Texas A&M still don't feel like SEC teams to me still, and I know that's
they're gonna feel like it. They're gonna feel like it more next year when we have Texas and Oklahoma.
I mean, that's a joke.
I don't like it either. I don't like it either. But no, there's Missouri's gonna be my biggest surprise. Even though I was on them early, I definitely did not think they were going to finish, 8th in the nation at the end of the season. So, shout out Missouri. They played really well. I just, I hope Georgia always beats them, though, of course.
Fair enough. So, I mean, my biggest surprise is probably going to be Jayden Daniels. I was higher on Jayden Daniels than a lot of people were pre-season. I saw talent there. Like, obviously, I saw draftable talent. Like, he was, I want to say my top quarterbacks, like, preseason, were Caleb, May. I know I had JJ 3rd, and then I think I had Jayden either 4 or 5. But I didn't see this type of season coming. I didn't see a Heisman season coming for him. And it's just it's different than what we were expecting in a lot of ways, because like me and you have been watching him since he was a freshman, and like I specifically went back and tried to find the exchange we had, because I do specifically remember us like posting in our group chat being like, when he was a freshman, like, hey, this guy might be the dude. Like, he's pretty good. He looks pretty nice out there. Like the first 4 weeks of his freshman year.
There was like a throw at his very first game at Arizona State where it was like some like deep ball. He just dropped it in over the safety's head right into a receiver for a touchdown. And that's the only thing I can really remember from that, like off the top of my head. But like I remember that, and I texting you, and I was like,
yeah, I have a very vivid memory of you either by text message or by group me saying, Jayden Daniels might be that dude. Like, verbatim, that is what you said, and I know like that, and that's how you talk. So like I know exactly, it's not a fake memory, to be honest. But I didn't see Heisman coming for him, and it's because like I almost felt like he played a frustrating brand of quarterback for us until this year, like the CJ Stroud style when CJ was at Ohio State, where he had this athleticism, but he would just stay and pass in the pocket more than you wanted him to. Like, you wanted him to break the game with this athleticism and creativity. And it finally happened.
To the last game of his career.
So all of it is the surprise for me with Jayden Daniels. I didn't expect him to kind of break the mold that he had for himself almost.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. He was electric, and like he had the arm talent. It's just we never really put it fully together. And then this year, I mean, it helps having Blake Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. But I mean, he definitely elevated his game.
You take them off
It's
the field though, and this
yeah.
guy's still making those rushing
Oh
plays.
yeah,
You know,
exactly. And that's the thing about the whole CJ Stroud thing. Because I mean, we talked about it, and like we've talked to our friends before, and like obviously you were AR number one, but I was CJ number one just because I was like, but there was a caveat. It was like if CJ plays like he did against Georgia, where he's willing to use his legs, willing to roll out of the pocket, throw on the run, do everything necessary, he's my number one quarterback. But I have a year and a half to 2 years of tape of him not doing that, other than against Georgia. So I was like, if he reverts back to that, maybe not. Maybe I'm just going to roll with the consensus of Bryce Young, even though I definitely had my question marks about him.
So
And he was my third. But if he played like he played against Georgia, he was my clear number one personally.
yeah, well,
And
and
it was
too, I love
frustrating.
CJ. Like
Yeah,
going into the year, I had said I think CJ might be my QB1.
yeah, yeah. You
And
flipped
CJ,
later on.
well, he ended up being my QB3 overall,
Yeah,
but he was my number 11 overall player, and like only 3 spots below Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young.
yeah,
And it is never because I didn't like CJ. Like they are all graded so close. It was like razor thin margins,
hmm
and you know, so you might some Ohio State weirdos out there that like to stalk me might think that I don't like CJ Stroud, but I loved CJ Stroud. I just
yeah,
had, the hesitation of, is he going to play like he played at like with Georgia? Because when he did, that guy's what we're seeing in the
yeah.
NFL. Like he's a top 10
Exactly. Yeah,
quarterback. Or is he going to play like he played, a little bit more
yeah,
conservative, which that's still a very good quarterback. That's still a very high floor quarterback, but that's more of like a top 18-ish quarterback in the NFL. And there's a big difference between top 18 and top 10. You
yeah. You
know,
don't want to take that ladder high. Like
yeah.
it was frustrating. But he's playing, how we hoped he would play. So let's go to him. So move over to my biggest disappointment. It's probably the world's biggest disappointment, but it's the easiest one I can think of. It's just USC. Man, I was high on them. They came in, ranked sixth in the nation. Heisman quarterback Lincoln Riley. They got Bear Alexander as a transfer. They brought in hella transfers. They had 5 stars coming to them. They had two of the most electric freshmen, like true freshmen, still to this day in the country.
Oh my God, Branch! I'm so
Yeah, I know.
excited for
Yeah,
him.
I know you are. And so like they had, they had talent. They had a lot of talent. They even brought in defensive talent. I thought that was going to help. Bringing in guys that had done it in other colleges, that are more talented what they have now, and put it all together. But even a Lincoln Riley offense could not make up for an Alex Grinch defense, and it was bad. And you saw it from the first game against San Jose State, I want to say, where it was a battle. They ended up pulling away at the end. It was a comfortable
It was
win,
still a
but
shootout, yeah.
watching, the first like 2.5 quarters, it was like, what is going on? Like they could not stop San Jose State at all, and it was like this could be bad. Being so high on them, I was like this. Later on in the schedule, especially in the Pac-12, which we both thought might be a really, really, really good conference, if not the best conference. And that's saying a lot, that we knew it was going to catch up to them. But they lost. It was even worse than I thought after that first game. Like they lost every single ranked game they played, and they lost to UCLA. And we know it was all happening with UCLA at the time.
I didn't even know
And
that.
yep,
The
yep,
ranked stat or the ranked
yep.
note. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I
Jesus.
didn't. I had to look it back up too. Yeah, they lost all those ranked games. Lost to UCLA at the end. And not only that, they barely won the same way with San Jose State, but without pulling away against Colorado, Arizona, and Cal. Like I think they needed overtime in Arizona too, which Arizona was a big surprise this year. So that one I can kind of push to the side a little bit because they were actually really good, comparatively to what I would think they would be. But the rest of them, there's no excuses for having Caleb Williams at quarterback, having the talent you have on offense and even defense, and Lincoln Riley, that you should be a 5-loss team. I don't even think they got any votes. Actually no, they had like 3 votes in the coaches poll in the top 25. So ending
I
ranked 35th, 40th maybe, but it's
I
just
truly
not
just think
good.
I truly think it's a cultural issue. And I'm not gonna sit here. It's gonna sound like I'm gonna be blaming Caleb when I say this, and I don't really mean to. I don't know if it gets better or worse with Caleb leaving. And the only reason I say that is I don't think Caleb individually was like creating a bad culture. But sometimes when you have like a guy who is a big time star, um, it can kind of make things culturally worse just by default because players like can get sour about it. And I
Yeah,
don't know. Like I don't know if that's what's happened here. But just like you can see it sometimes these guys have big egos. They have to have big egos like playing,
yeah,
big time sports. You you see high schoolers like they have the ego like I'm the best. I should be out there on the field like even when they're like a third string guy that like objectively when you watch they're not a starter. So
yeah,
you take it to a next level when you get to college football, and you take it to an even bigger level in the NFL. And sometimes when you have a guy that is that big of a star like Caleb, you can get some guys that are like, shit. Well, why am I not getting this kind of attention? I'm this kind of guy too. Like I'm that
mhm,
dude too. Um, so I don't know if it gets better or worse in the coming years, but I do think a lot of the what happened this year is like more cultural issue than talent issue or
I agree.
schematic issue. But my biggest disappointment is not necessarily a guy that like disappointed, like, but to me it was the disappointment is Joe Milton. Um, Milton actually improved this year statistically. Like he's gotten better as a quarterback in a lot of ways. Um, he's improved a lot since his Michigan days, but like it just feels like a disappointment still because you still see so much potential just left on the table. Like this guy is the absolute best arm ever, maybe like at quarterback,
Yeah,
and he's a hell of an athlete. Like the only person I can even compare him to is like Cam Newton, but like
mhm,
he's nowhere near producing the results of Cam Newton, and just that alone feels like a disappointment to me. And
yeah,
the fact that like now like he's gonna get drafted and he's gonna get a shot at quarterback, like, but he's probably a day 3 pick.
mhm,
Him athletically, like his skill set, his talent shouldn't be a day 3 pick. This guy should be a top 10 pick. And it just feels like a big disappointment. Like, I don't know. I didn't necessarily expect him to put it all together and have that like breakout season, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't wish that happened. Like I'd be
yeah,
lying if I didn't wish that like he had a Hendon Hooker type breakout this year when he got his chance to be the starter.
yeah. And I agree. I mean, there was people talking about he's going to win Heisman. He'll be the best quarterback coming out, or not be the best because Caleb would. He'd be second. And there was a lot of hype around him, especially after we saw Hendon Hooker do it to that Tennessee offense. Me and you both kind of thought they'd take a step back. They wouldn't be the same as last year, especially losing their receivers that they did. But with Milton, yeah, I mean, 20 touchdown passes. That's not really what you want to see with a guy with that big of an arm. His biggest thing is I just don't know if he can control it.
Oh
Like
no.
there was
Like his
there was so
accuracy
many deep
numbers
balls.
are up,
Yeah,
but
it
like he
was.
still has those
Yeah,
misses.
yeah, it was just like it was deep ball for deep ball, where it's like he'd have his guy have a step on the defensive back and he just overshoot him by like a mile. And it's just he just can't hone it in. And I agree. I mean, we saw the videos preseason, but he has one of the strongest arms that I think I've ever seen in my life. It's a
I've
cannon.
shared this take like few months ago in our group chat. I'm not gonna back away from it because I truly am bought in and believe in it. I would take him on day 3 and convert him to tight end and use him like Taysom Hill.
I
He's
mean,
not
he's
as
what
like
6'3", 235 or six
something
five.
like
Sorry,
that.
two thirty
He's
five.
not as
Yeah.
fast and quick as Taysom. Taysom's very
Mm-hmm.
athletic. Like Taysom's a special athlete actually, but Joe Milton can do a lot of that stuff still, and like he has the arm and the ability to make those throws still. Like use that. Like I mean, the Falcons won it with Felipe Franks, but Felipe sucked at quarterback too. So,
Yeah.
but like I would immediately convert him to tight end and just like use him like Taysom Hill, and you're gonna have an immediate advantage because like you throw him. I mean, I joke about how like your quarterback sucks when you take him off the field at 3rd and goal. Like Derek Carr
Yeah.
sucks because you put Taysom Hill on the field then, but like you use him like that in the red zone, like it's 3rd and goal from the 3, and you run some kind of RPO with him where he can keep it or throw it or whatever. Like it's going to be hard to stop. You just got to be
Yeah.
able to hit those throws, but
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he'll ever really develop. And at this point, he was, you know, in college to 2018. I don't think he'll ever
yeah,
develop
he's
into
too
like a
old
starter.
to.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he could end up being like a career backup guy. I mean, that's someone that you kind of want on your bench. That at least can make those downfield passes and if athletic enough to run. If your quarterback gets injured, you
I
won't
think it
hope that
depends on the
he. plays
film
a
room.
lot, but yeah,
Like,
I mean,
I think people put too much stock.
Yeah.
Like, you see online when people talk about it, like they don't understand why like a guy like Tim Boyle has. I know Tim Boyle got cut
Yeah.
after he got he
Yeah.
got the start, but like they don't understand why like Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle
I would say
have
Trevor
jobs as
Siemian, Jake
backups.
Browning,
But like
like Chase
truly,
Daniel.
NFL teams, yeah, they like it's not about the tools and like what the guy can be, unless you're really actively trying to groom that next guy
Yeah.
like Jordan Love. It is about the film room and how he works with the quarterback that you have as your starter, and like how well they work together in sync as like study habits and such, and breaking down things
Mhm.
like I know for a fact there's a certain quarterback that is not in the league anymore, and he blames like the team he was on, like he blames the team for like just not giving him the shot. In reality, it's very clear from context clues and like other conversations, he didn't get along with the starting quarterback. The
Yeah.
starting quarterback didn't like him and said to the team, "I don't want to work with this guy closely. I don't want this guy in my QB room."
And they're
So
going to
they
go with
cut
the
him.
starting quarterback. Yeah, exactly. You're going to go with
And
your starting quarterback.
he wasn't worth he had talent, but he wasn't worth the trouble, and he's not better than your starter.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those situations where I think someone will take the talent, take a shot at talent and see what they can do. But after a few years, if it's nothing, or if he's not, I mean, if he's willing to work, then he's a good guy to be on the bench. Again, he's not safe, but he's athletic and he has an arm. And if you're backup quarterbacks in the game anyway, you're not really expecting to continue to win.
I just won't be surprised if he goes the Logan Thomas, Tyree Jackson type route of having to convert one day.
I forgot. I remember I was a little higher on Tyree Jackson than a few other people.
And,
I
hated
backfired.
him, bro.
I know you.
But
Yeah,
Logan Thomas, I thought would be fun back in the day.
Yeah,
I mean, I was a little bit young and wasn't thinking draft terms and like stuff, but.
We'll wrap up this episode with just a few surprising declarations and guys returning to college that it's going to be coming back next year. I got one declaration. A lot of the guys so far that we're still waiting on a few others, guys that just played, but I got one that I was a little bit surprised on, but it's more of the whole story. Cam Ward. It's just such an interesting. Too. Yeah, I figured so. It's really the only surprise, really. Everyone else, I kind of see either preseason or how they performed. But with Cam Ward, I mean, he would go toe-to-toe in the Pac-12 with a lot of elite quarterbacks, and he looked like he could be a guy, especially if you put him in a system or you bring him to a school like Ohio State, which I thought would be great. Obviously they didn't want him, or he didn't want them, according to some reports. Then trying out in Miami, I don't know how well that would have worked, but apparently Miami didn't want him as well. So now I start questioning, like, what do all these colleges that did not want Cam Ward play? Because fans wanted him everywhere. I mean, USC, Ohio State, like all these top schools, Michigan, if JJ leaves, like all these top schools wanted him, but then the schools did not want him, or he did not want the school. And then once Florida State decided to go DJU over him, I think that was his final straw. I was like, all right, I'm just going to work myself to the NFL. So that's my one surprising
I have
declaration.
A hunch that Cam Ward thinks higher of himself than he really is, and like
that's
I said earlier,
getting down to me,
like I said, like these guys have to have those kind of egos, especially quarterbacks. They really do. They have to believe they can go out there and make a big difference. But I have a feeling that Cam Ward thinks very highly of himself, and I don't think he's necessarily as good on the field as that attitude warrants. Now, that all being said, the other surprise that I really have with declarations was Jonathan Brooks from Texas, because it was very heavily rumored that him and Ewers were going back next year, and Brooks tore his ACL and such, so he was out for a good bit of the regular season and the playoffs. And with the rumors that he was going back, it kind of shocked me a little that he ended up declaring. And it makes things a little interesting because, he tore his ACL, so he's got that. But like before that, a lot of people were kind of saying he might be the RB1 of the draft class. So
he was balling out.
That was my big surprise for declarations.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, to me, after the year he had, I figured he'd want to cash in personally. They had CJ Baxter there too, and he was starting to get a lot of carries even when he was playing. So I think it was kind of they wanted to phase him out. Not like they didn't want him. It was just we want to get the young boy some run.
I think it was really just that it was already rumored he was going back. Is where
I didn't know that.
I'm coming from.
Obviously, I know the Quinn Ewers rumor, which is I can revert that because that's one of my two surprising returnees was Quinn Ewers. And more so like the preseason talk about everything was, everyone's saying Quinn Ewers is, he could be QB3. I think you had him QB5, I want to believe, preseason or
I had him
so.
top 10, I know.
Yeah, I know that. I think it was like 5 or 6 though. You had him because I had him at 3, I believe. Because I'm a little bit higher on him. But it was a little bit of a surprise just because of the talks of him coming out, obviously being the highest overall ever recruit, and just him having a good season, getting hurt, coming back, having a solid season this year. Nothing spectacular though. Obviously, it led Texas to a college football playoff appearance. But didn't overly wow people. He had a lot of inconsistencies as well, and it's just I understand why he came back, but the reason I put him as a surprise was because all the talks that he was definitely going to be the next guy, especially with Arch Manning coming in. Because now it's kind of like, is Arch really okay with waiting until he's a junior to get on the field?
Yeah, Arch is going to be an interesting one because it already seems like he's gonna do that regardless. Like it seems like, but because it's kind of late for the transfer portal for him. But
I think it reopens up after spring ball though, because that's when Coleman and them transfer.
True. But then you're at a disadvantage because you didn't do spring ball. I mean, and Arch kind of gets that benefit of the doubt a lot. But
if he leaves, he's getting a starting job somewhere. It doesn't matter where.
I think my big surprise return is Carson Beck, in just the sense that I don't think Carson Beck is going to elevate his stock next year, and I don't think it's because of quality of play. I think it is just like a he is who he is type of situation. But contextually, it doesn't surprise because he's getting a bag, apparently, reportedly, to stay at UGA. So that makes more sense. But I just kind of felt like Beck is who he is, and his stock had been elevated, and it kind of comes off as a strong QB class when you think about it, but when you actually dive into it, it's not as strong of a QB class as it seems. And I think Beck probably would have been a day 2 pick, easy.
I think so too. I think in the moment, when you're looking at it on paper, you look at this QB class, you're like, "Oh, this is great," and then you start thinking about
Bo Nix is older, and Penix
is
older.
old, Penix is iffy. Yeah.
I
mean, JJ hasn't shown everything on the field. So
and JJ may or may not go, and after them, it's very very iffy because
I do think
Austin Reed.
I do agree that Beck would be a day 2 guy. I think he's shooting for that day 1 though.
I just don't think.
Yeah,
I personally don't think he's gonna change. He's not that kind of he's not a athlete that's developing or something like that that can and sort of a Joe Burrow type of jump. He's not. He is who he is at this point because he's also an older college player as well at this point.
Exactly. So he's a guy that I think. I mean, he'll definitely improve. Especially his mentality, being able to read defenses. I mean, that's just with experience. But as far as actual talent, I mean, he has a strong arm already. He's mobile, but not super quick. He's not even Stetson Bennett quick. But he can move around the pocket and get some yards if he needs to. But he's not looking to do that. But with him,
he's going to win some games next year for sure.
I think it's more he wants to try to make it win a championship as a quarterback. I think that's one of his goals because he wouldn't have stayed at Georgia this long, sitting behind people without doing that. But I think also, I mean, he sees obviously he's not going to beat out Caleb. He's not going to beat out Drake May. He's not going to beat out Jayden Daniels anymore. So I think he's sitting there. He's like, okay, I'm at least QB4. Who's there next year? Who can beat me next year?
Weird. Next year's weird.
Yeah. There's not a lot of there's on paper there might be some talent, but I mean, Quinn Ewers is the only one I can think of that could right now it could be head to head with him, and I don't know if a team would pick Quinn over Beck right now.
Shedeur will get the hype.
Shedeur will get the hype. That was gonna be my next one. I mean, Driller, he'll be able to go, but I don't think at this point. Yeah, I don't think at this point anyone's gonna be taking the risk on him. So I don't see him going that. I mean, Jackson Dart's not. I'm kind of off my high horse of Jackson Dart. I was big on Ole Miss last year, which they were good this year. But I think I was more big on the team more than I thought. So I mean, Jackson Dart's not going to get picked over him. So it's just, I think he's sitting there. He's like, my odds to go in the first round are much higher next year. And obviously, I'm going to get a bag, and I can have a chance to win a national championship. If he would have won this year, I think it might have been a little bit different. especially if he got the height. He might have moved into even a late first round, but probably second round pick, guaranteed. And I think that was his. And real quickly before we wrap up, my other one I want to mention was Raheem Sanders. I get it. I get it because he was hurt. He played 6 games this year, and that's it. And in 3 of them, he didn't even get 10 carries. So I get it. He wants to put that tape on there, but I mean, he was. I think he was my RB1 preseason. So
he was mine.
I was just
100%.
Yeah,
he was mine preseason.
It was like, dang, what, and I was going to South Carolina, and even that I'm kind of questioning because the guys that transferred in to South Carolina last year, I think one of them already left because he didn't want to be there. So I don't know what he sees in South Carolina. Maybe I'm not sure if he's from there. He might be, but yeah, it's just that was one of my other surprises is Raheem Sanders because I
think South Carolina is going to surprise you next year.
Really?
Personally, yeah.
So many people leave.
I'm basing this off of very surface level stuff I've seen, but they add in Sanders. Their new quarterback is going to be. I don't know if they're going to do.
I saw it today. Or they got Bevel or whatever from Oklahoma, today, right before this. Honestly, I don't know his name
from Oklahoma.
Davis Bevel? No, yeah, Davis Bevel. Yeah, 2 hours ago. Former Oklahoma.
My 11 quarterback
is. I saw it today. I was like, oh yeah, number 11 quarterback in the 2019 class.
So there was another guy that they already had last year. That was their backup, and I don't know. Maybe he transferred out because I'm not seeing him on the depth charts right now. But it was he was. I don't think it was him. No, it was a 6'3" type of quarterback, athletic. He had glasses that he would wear on the field during the game, so it looked a little goofy. But the dude was an athlete and had a rocket. He was a true freshman this past year though.
He might have left then. I don't know.
He might have. I don't know. But if I was operating under the assumption he's the quarterback, and then you add in Rocket, you get Nick Harbor actually his snaps went up as the year went on. And I want to say South Carolina had a pretty high defensive recruit come in or something that recently too.
It was a top. I think this recruiting class he's top 10, top 15. I think.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure about that.
I don't know, but maybe I'm a little bit too high on him, but I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Stewart. Yeah, edge rusher Dylan Stewart. I think he was the number 1 edge too, if I remember off the top of my head. But yeah, no, they should be solid. But I hope
Lenore Sellers, did he leave? That's the guy I was thinking.
Oh, I have no idea. I remember that name now that you say that, but I don't know off the top of my head if he's still there or not.
6'3", 245.
Lenore, you said?
Lenore Sellers.
Oh, nice. Let's see. News. Isn't he? I don't. Programs watches to see development. No, I think he's still there.
I'm operating under the assumption that this guy is the next quarterback, and the stuff I saw, he looked like a stud. Truthfully,
the third, I'm on Google News, and the third thing after I just write Lenore Sellers, the headline for this the state, I guess it's probably South Carolina thing. Post and Courier, is Gamecocks QB Lenore Sellers drops jaws in debut. Lenore Sellers drops jaws all around William Bryce Stadium on Saturday as a perfectly thrown instructional level touchdown pass.
Dude, you see the rec specs.
I like it.
I don't know. The stuff I saw from him though, very limited, but it looks like there's a lot of potential there. So for all I know, they're going to go 6-6, but it looks fun. It just looks fun.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I thought they were fun this year. They just had no defense, but they were, their offense was rolling at times. As long as they weren't facing a top 10 type defense. That's gonna do it for this episode. Follow us on all socials, Empirical_Scout. I'm Taylor, and that's Taylor, and I'll see you next time. Peace.
1